listening to Give God 90, where we're not afraid of the tough biblical questions, because we will dig through the language, the culture, and the history to find the truth revealed in the words of our Creator.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting us spend some time with you today. I am being carefully monitored and supervised.
Yes, you are. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today.
Absolutely. If you haven't been to GiveGod90.com lately, you might want to check that out. Author Jerry Mitchell's where the books are sold, on with every other fine bookstore. Am I making noise? Okay. I'll try to be good. Which is why I'm monitored and supervised. Oh, me. Yes, and I get funny looks, too. A
lot of them.
I want to jump right into what we're getting to today, kind of in a way. I had a message after our last podcast, and apparently I said something about other misinformation that we hear. And the question was, well, what other misinformation's out there? Well, I purposely kind of avoided it because it does get a little technical, kind of, but there's a reason for it. One of the things that I noted in my response was how viruses are able to, basically they mutate as they reproduce or replicate. Now, some scientists consider this a completely different strain of virus, while others simply see it as a mutation. And while that might not seem like an important difference, it is. We hear that this is the A1N1 whatever strain, and the others were different. And you've heard all of the different things that you probably think, oh, that's more information I need, and you didn't pay a lot of attention to it. But when a virus comes into contact with a host, whether it's a bird, a human, whatever, that is when the virus has a chance to reproduce or replicate. Now, viruses can't replicate on their own. They depend on the host cell's protein synthesis and their pathways to be able to reproduce. When the host body is able to recognize the virus as an intruder, it begins the process of eradication, right? That's when in people we get fevers because heat destroys viruses. So that's why you run a temperature when you have a virus. It's trying to eradicate it. And it tries to do that to minimize the virus replication. Now, depending on the proteins that the virus has access to, it kind of depends on how the virus may be affected during its replication. It really doesn't add any information. It really can't. But the information it has may change because of what the proteins of the host provide. That's a fancy, fancy way of saying that a virus is still going to be a virus, but it might have the ability to sort of camouflage itself from the host for a little while until the host body once again recognizes it as a virus or an intruder and tries to kill it. What a lot of news agencies are telling us is that it's some kind of a new strain of virus, when in reality, it's the same virus with a slightly different protein configuration. And like I said, I don't want to get real technical here, so I'm going to kind of leave it there. And if you're interested, I suggest you go online and read some articles about virus reproduction and read them from several different researchers. And then you decide for yourself which one of them comes the closest to actually using the design of the Creator on which to build their research. Another thing we're currently focusing on is the chicken and egg production, right? In a few weeks, though, turkey growers are going to come under the same scrutiny. Why in a few weeks? Well, most turkey production needs to be ready for fall, right? That's when people are buying turkeys for Thanksgiving and Christmas. Now, it takes turkeys longer to grow, right? because they're bigger, takes them a little longer to get to that weight. And people want fresh turkeys. They don't want a turkey that's been laying in a freezer for 6 years. So, growers and processors, they attempt to time things properly. Sometimes it works. Sometimes they're a little early. Sometimes they're a little late, but they usually get it pretty close. You're the consumer. You want the freshest product you can get, and that's what they're trying to provide. Strangely, though, and I understand this, nobody's really talking about, the production of goose, duck, pheasant, or quail, all of which are available in some stores, right? They're just not as popular as chicken and turkey. The other thing is that typically, the geese, the ducks, the pheasant, and quail, they're not in an overcrowded situation. They're not grown in the same manner and environment as chickens and turkeys are raised in. And we need to remember, when it comes to chicken and turkeys, when a grower finds a sick bird, there's a couple of things they'll do. They'll either kind of mark it. They'll take usually a black latex paint stick of some type, and they'll mark the bird so they can keep a close eye on it. If they think they've got a little more problem, then they might quarantine it. And if things get really drastic, they're going to have it tested. The response to this, when they find something in the testing that says, ooh, we might have a real problem here, is they don't just look for the sick birds. They will destroy the entire flock that's in that house. And that can mean a couple thousand birds sometimes, right? And then, when they destroy it, well, it has some exponential consequences down the production chain, right? Because before they can put another flock in that house, it has to be completely disinfected. They have to clean it. That takes time. Time in a production chain is money, right? And it's kind of a vicious cycle, right? We need to keep the industry active, but when something interferes with the production cycle, it's costly. It's costly. Now, what most consumers see when they go to the grocery store is an increase in the cost of eggs or the cost of chicken meat. But the cost to the growers and processors is far more significant. Far more significant. It can cost the grower their income for an entire season. And it could wind up costing the people who work in the production plant their job. If you don't have any chickens to process, well, that means no work for the people that work in the processing plant, right? If people aren't working, they don't have any money to spend. So what happens in the communities that they live in? Well, the stores where they typically go shop, these folks don't have any money. They can't go shopping. So the stores themselves wind up losing money. They may wind up losing employees, laying employees off, because if money's not coming in, it can't keep going out, right? It's private industry. It's not a government. You can't just keep putting money out the door. Now, I'm telling you this for a couple of reasons. One is, if we want to have a viable poultry industry, if we want to keep being able to go to the store, buy eggs, buy chicken, then we have to find a way to return to growing these birds in a way that keeps them healthy without over-medicating them. More like the Creator designed them to be, right? That means a lot of things. And as I was thinking about this, I've spent way more time telling you about the chicken industry than I ever intended to, but you'll see what I mean. As I was thinking about, having things live the way they're designed to live, not just people, think about this. In a poultry industry, we need less overcrowding, more natural sunshine, better quality food and water, and less synthetic medicine. One of the things that popped into my mind as I was thinking about this, and here's where I'm going to get in some trouble. We're doing the same thing to our children. 9 or 10 months out of the year in the United States, we send our kids to school. They're in a crowded classroom, and that's for most of the daylight hours, right? We feed them food that is processed in such a way, it preserves the food, but it uses chemicals to preserve that food that lessen the nutritional value of the food they eat. Did you realize that we're treating our kids like we're treating our animals for slaughter? Now, to answer the questions about lack of sunshine, overcrowding, food with poor nutrition, the answer to that, parents say, "Are you feeling okay? I need to take you to the doctor." The doctor's going to look at the child and say, "Oh, we can fix this. Take this medication." And quite often, the medication has side effects, negative side effects, right? One of the side effects of a lot of medications is an upset stomach. What's the answer? Instead of taking the child off the medication, just give them this other medication, right? You have an upset stomach, here, take Pepto-Bismol. Tums. You have too much stomach acid. Typically, I'm not going to get into it, but normally people don't have enough, right? We wonder why all our kids are sick all the time. Think about it. If you take them out of the sunshine, if you put them in an overcrowded situation, I've talked to a lot of adults, and they all talk about the little kid germs. How do the little kids get the germs? They're in an overcrowded situation. Their immune systems are compromised because of poor quality food and over-medication. We're treating our children like we treat our animals. So, what does the average person do? What does the average person, what's their response? Well, we're going to find somebody else to blame for our own faults, right? We're going to lay the blame on everybody else except ourselves. And if you're wondering where this is going to be found in the Bible, here are a few passages.
Why do you notice the little piece of dust that is in your brother's ear, but you don't notice the big piece of wood that is in your own eye? Why do you notice the little piece of dust that is in your brother's eye, but you don't notice the big piece of wood that's in your own eye? Why do you say to your brother, "Let me take that little piece of dust out of your eye"? Look at yourself first. You still have that big piece of wood in your own eye. You are a hypocrite. First, take the wood out of your own eye. Then you will see clearly enough to take the dust out of your brother's eye. Matthew chapter 7, verses 3 through 5. Do you see a man who is wise in his own eyes? There is more hope for a fool than for him. Proverbs 26:12. The first to state his case seems right until another comes and cross-examines him. Proverbs 18, verse 17. But they tell others, "Stay away, don't come near me. I am too holy for you." These people are like smoke in my nose. Like a fire that burns all the time, they continue to make me angry. Isaiah chapter 65, verse 5.
All right. We are very often very quick to see the faults in others, but we overlook our own. There's an old saying where I grew up: Don't condemn in others what you condone in yourself. We see the problem in an industry and we think, well, that's terrible. That's terrible. But we continue to use the products from the industry. We see the problem in our public school system, and unfortunately it's in our private school systems too, and we keep sending our kids to school. We see the issues in our medical industry, but we keep going to the same doctors. Now, we send our kids to school and we expect them to receive an education, but then when they come home, we sort of overlook what's going on, right? Now, today, kids will come home. They've got homework to do. They've got other things going on. And then they're playing video games in a dark room. Does that make a lot of sense to anybody? Now, when our children were young, they were outside a lot. But so are we, right? There were a lot of nights I would come home from work, eat a quick supper, and we'd go fishing. A lot of nights we would do that when our kids were young. Now, did we get everything right? Absolutely not. There were things that I didn't know then that I know now. And I like to think if I would have known them then, I would have done things differently. I hope if I had the information then that I have now, I would have done some things differently. But like a lot of people who listen to us, we did the best we could with the information we had available to us at the time. The difference is that we have the chance to compare what we had been taught in the past with what the Creator teaches us. Now, even though that's in the past, a lot of times we confuse it. We get it wrong. So when we think about the things that we were taught in the past, you can begin to correct that by saying, I need to look at what I'm doing and figure out, is this what the Creator had intended for us? Or am I just kind of keeping on doing the things that got me in trouble to start with? Right? Now, I'm hoping that as you listen to these podcasts, you're doing that, right? Learning to compare what you've been taught with what the Bible has to teach, and choosing the word of the Creator and live the way you're designed to live. And often that means examining the way you do things and coming to the realization that you're just not perfect. That's tough sometimes, right? Nobody wants to admit, I was wrong. But, and I like to use this example, if you were taught 1 + 1 = 3, and even though you believed that from the people that you trusted, it doesn't make it true. Because hopefully everybody realizes that 1 + 1 = 2, right? There is an example of this in the Bible as well. And David does a really good job of this. Well, it's not a really good job, but it makes kind of more sense in Hebrew than it does in English.
God, I wish you would kill the wicked. Get away from me, you murderers. These men say evil things about you. Your enemies use your name thoughtlessly. Lord, I hate those who hate you. I hate those who rise up against you. I feel only hate for them. They are my enemies. God, examine me and know my heart. Test me and know my thoughts. If there is any bad thing in me, lead me in the way you set long ago. Psalms 139:19-24.
All right. So David says this, and then he reconsiders some things. He looks at his life and he understands why our Creator simply doesn't kill the wicked. You know, David had sinned too, right? So read that next passage.
Lord, rescue me from evil people. Save me from cruel men. They make evil plans. They always start fights. They make their own tongue sharp as snakes. Their words are like snake poison. Psalms chapter 140, verses 1 through 3.
The rest of Psalm 40 is kind of about killing people. Isn't about killing the people, I should say. It's about being protected from evil people and not wanting to continue to live the way the world wants us to live, but instead living the way we are designed to live. Now, David does include some things like, well, can't you at least punish them, right? And he says, don't give the wicked what they want. Well, like David, we need to be able to see our own faults, our own hurts, habits, and hang-ups, as Dr. Sean likes to say. We need to recognize we are just not perfect. And we need the Creator's protection from the people who may try to do us harm. Yet that harm can come in many, many forms. It can come in physical harm, and that's what most people think about. But it can come in emotional harm. It can come in spiritual harm. You see, evil doesn't care how it harms you. It will attack you at every point you have. Now, there's been a lot of good people who have been tricked into thinking that they can help others when they're actually harming them, right? Doctors are a great example of this. They want to help people. They want to help people feel better. They don't want them to be sick. If you're injured, they want to fix you. But there are evil people who have corrupted the medical profession by teaching that, you know what, mankind has come up with a better way to heal than our Creator. There's first responders out there. They want to help in an emergency. But there are evil people who have trained them to do things that may have, well, they'll do more harm than good. There's teachers out there, good teachers. They have a strong desire to pass accurate information on to everyone, people of all ages. But there are evil people out there who give them twisted information to teach. You know, the list can go on, right? Pick your profession. The question is, well, maybe I should say it this way. The question you should try to answer is, am I working on correcting my faults so that I'm living the way I'm designed to live? Am I doing that? And that's a question only you can answer. You know, nobody can answer it for you. I know I've got a long way to go. Myra will tell you I've got a long way to go. I recognize that. I realize that. I am so far from perfect, it's ridiculous. But a lot of people say, oh, it's just easier to see the fault in somebody else. It's easier to pass the blame on to somebody else. And maybe the reason that it's easier to see the fault in others is because we're too afraid to look in the mirror and see our own faults, see our own hurts, habits, and hang-ups, see our own problems, see that we are not living the way we're designed to live. See that we are part of the world instead of set apart from the world. And when you come to that realization, it's a wake-up call. So, until next time, we do wish you many, many blessings, everyone.
Yes, be blessed all.